Hello friends, recently the Lok Sabha has passed the Forest Conservation Amendment Bill 2023. We'll be analyzing what are the amendments proposed in that bill. If you want to download this slide, you can go to the description box. If you want to listen to this video in Hindi, then the link also can be found in the description box that is available on another channel that is prepezee. So basically the context is that Lok Sabha has recently passed the Forest Conservation Amendment Bill 2023 on 26th of July. Basically, this bill amends the Forest Conservation Act of 1980. The bill is titled Van Sanrakshan Evam Samvardhan Adhiniyam, where Sanrakshan means conservation only and Samvardhan means augmentation, that is increasing of the area. Augmentation means an increase in the area. The preamble to the bill, it states that the objective of this bill is to achieve net zero emissions by 2070. This is also India's commitment under its international commitments, which were named as NDCs, earlier INDCs and then NDCs, that is nationally determined contributions. The bill says, the preamble says that we will be aiming to create a carbon sink. Carbon sink simply refers to a forest area which has the ability to absorb carbon emissions, that is CO2 emissions from the atmosphere. That is called a carbon sink. We'll be increasing the forest cover and also improving the livelihoods of forest dependent communities which are dependent for their food, the other commercial produce also, and such other things on the forest. That is the preamble. Now let us have a look at the major features of this bill. So I have told you the title is Van Sanrakshan Evam Samvardhan Adhiniyam, which has been titled in Hindi, and there has been some opposition from the South Indian states also, which say that why are we having the name in Hindi when it is perfectly alright to have it in English as the Forest Conservation Act. Secondly, the bill talks about certain activities which are restricted. So let us understand this in certain detail. See, the earlier act, that is the 1980 Act, what does it say? So we are amending this act. So therefore, let's first have a look at what it actually originally says. So it says that no act, that is no forest, can be diverted to non-forest purposes. This is the basic proposition in this act, that no forest which is existing can be diverted for non-forest purposes, that is, it cannot be destroyed. But then there are certain conditions. First of all, it can be done. How? It can be done by the prior approval of central government. This is the first condition. Only the prior approval of central government can do it. And secondly, and then here when we say central government, what do we mean? We mean Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change. That is, Ministry of Environment gives the permission for this change. That is for non-forest purpose. It says that even you cannot do horticulture or any forest land. You cannot do anything except reforestation. That is, if a patch of land has been devoid of forest due to certain reasons, destruction, then you can again afforest them, that is, plant trees on it and make it a forest. But there are certain activities which are exempted from this act. That is, which you can do without any prior clearance from the central government or the Ministry of Environment. What are those activities which you can do in a forest? That is, you can do either reforestation, as I just told you, and you can do activities which are concerned with the conservation, with the development of this area. And what is included in that? See, if you are raising a check post of people of the forest department, the people who will be there to conserve this forest, to protect this forest, that you can do. Fencing along a forest area so that nobody can enter illegally, that is also allowed. Such things which are there for conservation and which are defined in this act, they are allowed here. However, now this bill adds certain other activities to this exception. That is, these activities, they will not require any prior clearance from the ministry or the central government. For that, this bill has been introduced. And what are those activities? Zoos and safaris. If you want to make a zoo or a safari in a forest land, earlier you needed clearance from the central government. Now you don't. Now you can make a zoo or a safari without any clearance. Ecotourism, that is ecological tourism, that is people who want to visit areas, forests, and want to see that what is ecology services, ecology, that is the natural pristine way of that forest, that you can see. Silviculture, that is silviculture, forest growth, enhancement, that is also allowed. And the central government also has this power to exempt any kind of survey in such forest from the activities, that is from the provisions of the Forest Conservation Act of 1980. So I hope this is clear that these activities, if this bill is passed by the Rajya Sabha also and then get approval, then there won't be any requirement for any clearances for making zoos, ecotourism, silviculture and survey. So this is the first important point in this bill. Second, certain lands are exempted. If we take a look at this bill, then the bill says that these categories of lands, any of construction or anything which we do in these kinds of exempted lands, they are exempted from the definition of forest. So again, there would be no requirement of any prior approval from the government. What kind of lands or what kind of activities? See, if there is basically a forest along rail line, a forest land along a rail line is there, then this act will not consider it under its own purview. That is, under 1980 Act, this forest which is located along, see, this is a railway line, and this forest which is located along this railway line now will not be considered a forest under this Act, 1980 Act. So you can do whatever you want with it until and unless you are satisfying all the terms and conditions, but not required under 1980 Act. Similarly, any road which is providing access to a habitation. What is a habitation? See, this area, let's say this is a village. Now you might have seen that there are many small habitations, that is group of houses in a village. It is not necessary that a village is always a very compact area. Some villages are like this only, that this area there are some houses, then there is a land, fields, then some houses, then there are fields. So these are called habitations, a group of houses in which some people are living. So any road provide, if suppose let's say a forest is there and then there is a small habitation. So now under this bill, if you are creating or constructing any road which is giving access to this habitation, now this is allowed. So any road providing access to a habitation or a rail, that is allowed. Secondly, now any roadside amenity within 0.1 hectare size, that is a roadside amenity which is lesser than 0.1 hectare in size, that is also allowed here. And then there are certain other projects. For example, now if we say, let's suppose that this is the international border, this is China above this line, and below this line we have India. So now we have seen media reports which are saying that China has amassed so many infrastructure installations along this border. It has made motorable roads, it has made railway lines, it has made power lines and so many other activities. But Indians, we are still facing these issues because forest land, you can't do anything. Forest land, you can't do anything. You have a small border post. Forest land, you can't have a road. So now this bill says that if there is an international border and then there is within this 100 kilometer area, within this 100 kilometer area, you can build any infrastructure for security or for national importance. If there is any national importance, then you can build such a infrastructure along 100 kilometers of border, of line of control along the India-Pakistan border and line of actual control along the India-China border, that can be built. Similarly, in any forest, any security related infrastructure up to 10 hectares of size can be built. That is also allowed. And again, if there is any defense establishment, if there is any paramilitary camp, if there is any public utility project, that is also allowed in this area. But there is one condition. In Naxalite affected area, that is left-wing extremism affected area, this cannot be more than 5 hectares in size. So you must remember these sizes, that if there is a Naxalite affected area, the only project which is lesser than 5 hectares in size is allowed. Other than that, security related infrastructure less than 10 hectares is allowed, and roadside amenity less than 0.1 hectare is allowed. Now let us see what are the land which is included under this act. So basically this act, that is the 1980 act, it includes land which is called as forest under the definition provided by the Indian Forest Act 1927. So IFA means Indian Forest Act 1927. If there is any land in India which is defined as forest under this act, then it is automatically included in this act or the bill. However, after 25th of October 1980, if there is any other land which is notified as forest, not necessarily under Indian Forest Act, please again make it clear that now we are notifying this as a forest, but not under the definition given in this act. We are just simply saying this is a forest. We are not saying that this is a forest under the definition provided in Indian Forest Act 1927. So make it clear, because this is going to be a major UPSC question. So any forest which is declared so under Indian Forest Act, that is subject to this act, and any forest which is declared by the central government as a forest, not necessarily under the definition which is being provided under the act after 25th October 1980, is also subject to this act. So please make this very, very clear. However, this act will not apply to any land which has been converted to non-forest use before this date. But why this date? Let me first make it clear why this date, then I will make it clear what do we mean by this line. Why this date? On 12th of December 1996, Supreme Court passed a landmark judgment in Godavarman case. What is this Godavarman case? The Supreme Court said that if there is a forest, then there is no necessity that it has to be declared as such, that is declared as such by the central government. So Supreme Court said that if a forest is there and by dictionary meaning, if it qualifies as a forest, then it will be considered as a forest. There is no need for the government to declare or say or notify it as a forest. Even if the government says no, this is not a forest, we will consider it as a forest under the Forest Act if it considers, if it is in consonance with the dictionary meaning of the forest. So if there is a patch of land having multiple trees and which looks like a forest, then it is considered a forest. That is what Supreme Court said. There is no need for the government to notify it as such. So therefore, under this bill, now the government wants that any land which is changed to non-forest use, if there is a forest, but the government has already notified that this is not a forest and we will be converting it to some other thing before the Supreme Court judgment, then this is okay. Then the act will not apply. So if you are not clear, please listen to it again. I am very sure that you will be clear about this point. So this is another feature. Then there are two another features. One is, till now, if you wanted to give a forest on rent, or let's say the exact word is lease. What is lease? Ownership for a few years, like 90 years, 99 years. So if you want to give this forest to any private entity on lease, then you have to obtain prior permission of the central government. Till now, you had to obtain prior approval of central government. But if this bill is passed, then this prior approval is not required. A state government can directly give this land on lease. However, terms and conditions will be there which they have to fulfill, which central government will soon notify. If you are confirming to these terms and conditions, then you can give it on lease. No problem. No prior approval is required from central government. And the last point is that under this bill, the central government gets the power to issue directions to any authority, any corporation, or any other kind of any organization under this bill for the purpose of this act. So these are the major features. Now let us look at the issues which are present in this. So there was a very good article in Hindu which says that there are 3 or 4 major kinds of issues which are being faced in this bill. First, it says that you are restricting the definition of forest. As we have just seen that in 1996 in Godavarman case, Supreme Court said that any patch of land which can be seen as forest by its dictionary meaning, that is, if you see so many trees and it looks like a forest, then we will consider it as a forest. But now you are changing this definition. You are saying that after October 25, 1980, only till that legally notified forests are there. Before that, nothing like that. So this will impact. So what will happen is the forest of around 2 lakh square kilometer in India will now be made vulnerable to the activities of government. There won't be any prior approval required to destruct these forests, to destroy these forests and make any activities or any installations in that area, which I just told you, the exceptions which have been given. Secondly, it says that, see, along the border, India-China border, we have a very fragile ecosystem, that is Himalayas. And if you are allowing construction in that, then it is very fragile and it might affect the ecosystem. But then again, the author has given very less space to this point. So I think he believes that this is not a very major point, because right now the soldiers, the army, it needs access to that ecosystem. And for that, even if it might be having some environment implications, but the security of the country comes first. If we want to make a road to fight China, then that is the most important priority as of now. And the last point which is given by these authors says that you have given blanket exemptions for certain activities like making safaris, like zoo, ecotourism. The problem here is that if you are creating, see, if this is a patch of land and you are creating an artificial ecosystem like this, it will not be equivalent to a natural forest. It will not be providing you with the ecosystem services. You might make a land a zoo, but then ecosystem services you cannot gather from it. What is ecosystem service? See, forest does so many activities. What do forests do for us? They provide us food. They provide us timber, that is wood for furniture. They provide us so many medicines. They indirectly also they provide habitat to the biodiversity. There is so much flora and fauna. Then they provide water cleaning. They provide air cleaning. They act as carbon sink. They are also, let's say, what else they do? They hold on to the land. They hold on to the soil so that natural disasters don't take place. If there are forests on a mountain, you will see that landslides are very less. Landslides majorly happen where construction goes on. So many ecosystem services are being provided by the forest, and therefore giving a blanket approval for activities might not be in the best interest of the country. The author also gives us one very important piece of information. He says that in Nepal, 30 years ago, the government handed over the forest to the local communities, that we are unable to take care of these forests. Please take care of these forests as your own. So what happened? After these 30 years, it was seen that initially the total forest area of Nepal was 26%. But after 30 years, it has increased to 45%. So you can see there is a tremendous increase if you hand over to the local community. So India should also consider that. So therefore, the conclusion here is the author says that yes, we cannot reject this claim that Forest Conservation Act of 1980 has some deficiencies. Deficiencies are there. We agree to that. The deficiencies exist. But that does not mean that this act is bad. The act is good. The only thing is implementation is a problem. If Ministry of Environment is not giving you clearances, that does not mean act is bad. That means the Environment Ministry is not good. You must replace the officers who are holding on to these things. The bureaucratic apparatus needs to change, or its mindset needs to change. So we must fix that. We must not throw the act. We must not throw the baby out with the water. We must always look at implementing, and we must always see to it that the deficiencies get corrected. Otherwise, the natural disasters which are happening in Joshimath or Kedarnath, they will be much more frequent and will lead to so much loss of life and the economic the activities. So this is the article. If you like this, please like, share and subscribe, and thank you.